As I mentioned for Stampy Cat, if you've been following me on Facebook or Pinterest, then you probably know by now that I have a 9-year-old son, and at his request, I have done several of the Fairly Odd Parent characters and the Stampy Cat Longnose characters, and actually most of my designs are done for my son. And finally getting around to tutorials, today we're going to be working on Timmy Turner from Fairly Odd Parents. For Timmy Turner, we're going to be using a standard rainbow loom in the offset position, and the bands we'll be using are fuchsia, brown, skin tone, blue, white, and 2 turquoise bands for the eyes. And we'll start with the arms, and we're going to be using fuchsia and skin tone. Everything will be double banded, and we'll start with 2 fuchsia bands from the 6th peg to the 5th peg from the bottom on the right, and 2 more fuchsia bands from the 5th peg to the 4th peg, followed by 2 skin tone bands going 3 times down the right side. And we'll cap this with a single skin tone band wrapped 3 times around the bottom peg. We're going to do the same thing for the other arm. 2 fuchsia bands, 2 times going down the left from the 6th peg from the bottom, and 2 skin tone bands 3 times from the 4th peg to the bottom. And again, we'll cap this with a single skin tone band wrapped 3 times around the bottom peg. And we can loop this, reaching inside the cap band, grabbing the bottom 2 bands, and forming our teardrop or raindrop shape as we loop ahead to the peg above. And we'll do the same thing for the other arm, making sure we're grabbing both bands and that we have our teardrop shape as we loop ahead. And now I'm going to grab a spare hook, and I will remove these from the loom, and we can set this aside. The next attachments we'll do are the ears and the nose. And for that, we're going to be using skin tone bands. And for the ears, I will take a single skin tone band and wrap it 3 times around my peg, and another skin tone band and double it, and slide these 3 loops onto that double looped band. And that's 1 ear. We'll do the same thing again. A single skin tone band wrapped 3 times around the hook, and a double loop skin tone band, sliding those 3 loops onto the double loop band. And these we can put on our holding hook. And we'll set this aside. And for the nose, we're going to take a single skin tone band and double it, wrap it 3 times around our hook, and another skin tone band and double it, and slide the loops from our hook onto that double loop band. And this I'm just going to leave on the hook so I don't forget to attach it when I'm looping. For his feet, we're going to use blue bands. And in the picture that I followed to do this design, it almost looks like he's wearing footed pajamas. So I'm just using the same color as I did for the pants. And I'm going to put 2 blue bands on the last 2 pegs on the right, and 2 blue bands on the last 2 pegs on the left. Each of these we will cap with a blue band wrapped 3 times. And we can loop these, reaching inside our cap band and grabbing just the bottom 2 bands. You don't need to use the loom for this. You can just do this on your hook by wrapping your single blue band around your hook 3 times and then threading it onto 2 blue bands if you prefer. And we're going to add this to our holding hook. And we'll set this aside. And now Timmy has a few extra attachments. We're going to start with his hat, and I've struggled with his ball cap forever, and I'm just going to do the bare minimum. But DIY Mommy has an incredible tutorial for a ball cap, whether you want to make a charm or smaller, and I will put the link below so you can either do what I'm going to do, or you can check out DIY Mommy's link below and attach that. So for the hat, we're going to take a single fuchsia band and wrap it around our hook 3 times, and then we're going to take 2 fuchsia bands and thread these 3 loops on here, and we're going to do this 4 times altogether. So that's 1, 2 more bands is 2, 2 more bands is 3, and finally 2 more bands is 4. And this is going to be the brim of his hat. And we're going to place this on our holding hook and set it aside. And now we're going to do his bangs, and for that we're going to use brown bands. And what we need to do is take a single brown band, wrap it 3 times around our hook, and add 3 single brown bands. There's 1, 2, and 3. I'm just going to adjust my cap band. Going to put this on our holding hook. Next, we're going to do Timmy's eyes. And for that, we will need our turquoise bands and 2 white bands. So for the eyes, we're going to take our turquoise band and double it and wrap it 3 times around our hook. And then we're going to take a single white band and double it and slide these turquoise bands onto the white band. And we can leave that on our hook for now. We're going to do the same thing again for the other eye. A turquoise band, double it, wrap it 3 times around our hook, and take another single white band and double it. And we'll slide our turquoise bands onto the double white band. You can use beads for the eyes if you wish. It's up to you what you would prefer. We're then going to take a single skin tone band and slide our eyes onto this band. And whether you're using beads or bands, it's the same thing. You will slide them onto a double loop white band and then onto a single skin tone band. And this we can set aside. And Timmy has one final attachment, and that's his cute little buck teeth. So for that, what we're going to do is take a single skin tone band and wrap it 4 times around our hook. And we're going to do that again, a single skin tone band, and wrap it 4 times around our hook. Then we'll take a single skin tone band and slide both of the white bands onto this skin tone band. And this will give us his teeth after we remove him from the loom. And we can set this aside. And now we're ready to start on the body. So we'll get our loom. We'll start with his hair, and I'm going to put 2 brown bands from the first peg to the second peg in the center. And as part of his hat, I'm going to put 2 fuchsia bands from the first peg in the center to the first peg on the left, and 2 fuchsia bands from the first peg in the center to the first peg on the right. And we can continue with his hair with 2 brown bands going 2 times down the left, and 2 brown bands going 2 times down the right. Next we can move to his face, and we'll be using skin tone bands. Again, these are all doubled, and I will take 2 skin tone bands and go 3 times down the center. Two skin tone bands on the left, continuing where we left off. And the same thing on the right, 2 skin tone bands. For his neck, I'm using 3 skin tone bands, continuing down the center. And to close off his face, 2 skin tone bands from the 4th peg on the left to the 5th peg in the center, and 2 skin tone bands from the 4th peg on the right to the 5th peg in the center. We can move down to the shirt, and for that we're using fuchsia bands. Again, everything will be double banded, and I'm going to put 2 fuchsia bands continuing down the center where we left off, and we're going to do that 3 times. And now we can move to the left, and we will put 2 fuchsia bands from the 6th peg down on the left to the 6th peg down in the center, followed by 2 fuchsia bands going 3 times down the left side. We're going to do the same thing on the right side, 2 fuchsia bands from the 6th peg down in the center to the 6th peg on the right, followed by 2 fuchsia bands going 3 times down the right side. Now we're going to move on to his pants. And for that we're using blue bands. Again, everything is double banded, and we will put 2 blue bands going down the center, continuing from where we left off. And then moving to the left, we will put 2 blue bands going 4 times down the left side. We're going to do the same thing on the right side. 2 blue bands going 4 times down the right side. And to close off his pants, we're going to put 2 blue bands from the 4th peg up from the bottom in the center to the 5th peg on the left, and 2 blue bands from the 4th peg up in the center to the 5th peg up on the right. And this we will cap with a blue band wrapped 3 times around the center peg. And now we're ready for our holding bands, and I'm going to take a brown band and put it around the 1st peg on the left and the right, and the 2nd peg in the center. I'm going to take a skin tone band and put it on the 2nd peg on the left and the right, and the 3rd peg down the center. The next 2 I'm going to skip because we have his teeth and his eyes to attach there. So we'll move down to the shirt and put a fuchsia band around the 7th pegs on the left, the right, and the center, and a fuchsia band around the 8th pegs on the left, the right, and the center. We're going to put a dark blue band around the 9th pegs on the left, the right, and the center. Okay, and now we're ready for our attachments. And I'll start with the eyes. And they're going to go on the 3rd peg down on the left and the right, and the 3rd peg down in the center. And we're going to separate the eyes, and we will stretch one of the bands between the eyes up over the 3rd peg. Next I'm going to attach his teeth, and we'll do the same thing with the teeth. We are going to put one end around the 4th peg on the left and the right, and we can separate these 2 bands, and I'm going to pull one of the bands up over the 4th peg down in the center. Timmy's bangs we're going to attach to the 1st pin going down the center. And Timmy's hat, we are going to take the cap band and put it over the 1st peg on the left. We are going to skip one of the raindrop shapes and put the 2nd raindrop shape over the 1st peg in the center. And the open end we will put on the 1st peg on the right. And that will be his hat. Next we have his feet, and they are going to go on the last pegs on the left and the right. And his ears will go on the 2nd peg down on the left from the top, and the 2nd peg from the top on the right. And lastly, his arms are attached to the 6th peg down on the left and the 6th peg down on the right. And now we're ready to loop. We're going to start in the center and reach inside our cap band and grab the top 2 bands, which are going to the right, the next 2 bands will go to the left, and the final 2 bands will go straight forward. Now we're going to move to the left side and reach inside our foot attachment, grab the bottom 2 bands and loop forward, making sure we have our raindrop shape. We're going to continue up to the neck, and we want to make sure that we stay inside the holding band and grab just the bottom 2 bands. Going to go down and do the same thing on the right and loop up to the neck, grabbing just the bottom 2 bands, forming our teardrop or raindrop shape, and making sure that we stay inside the holding bands. And now we can loop up the center, again staying inside the holding bands, which is not as difficult in the center as it is on the outside pins. And when we get to the neck, we need to remember that we've used 3 bands here, so you want to make sure that you grab all 3 when you loop them forward. And then we want to reach in and grab the top 2 bands, which will go to the right, and the next 2 bands which go to the left. The final 2 bands go up the center, and then we can loop up the left side, again making sure we stay inside the eye bands and the holding bands, and we want to grab just the bottom 2 bands. We're going to do the same thing on the right side. Staying inside the bands that are holding our teeth and grabbing just the bottom 2 bands. The same thing with the eyes. And making sure that we have that proper teardrop or raindrop shape as we go. And now we can continue looping up the center, and from the 4th to the 3rd peg is where we attach our nose. So I'm going to slide it off my hook and loop it up around the 3rd peg, and then we can continue looping. We just want to check and make sure that we have looped all of the bands. Now we're ready for our slip knot, and I'm going to use 2 fuchsia bands just because we have so many bands here on that center peg with the hair attachment and the brim of the ball cap. So I'm just going to reach my hook down through that center peg, making sure that I've gone through all of the bands I'm going to grab my 2 slip knot bands, pull them through, and then form my slip knot. And I'm going to give that a little tug. And now we're ready to remove this from our loom. I'm going to start at the bottom. And I will work my way up. In places like my neck where I have a lot of bands, I reach my hook inside and roll it around the peg to loosen the tension, and the rest should come off fairly easily. And now he just needs a little bit of adjusting. We're going to fix his eyes and make sure they're to the front. I'm going to adjust his teeth as well. I'm going to bend his arms down to his sides, and you can put your hook inside those shoulder bands and give it a tug, and that will do the same thing that I'm doing with my fingers, and just angle his arms down to his sides a bit. I'm going to fix his feet a little bit. I'm going to put my hook in the first teardrop shape, not the cap band, but the teardrop shape, and I'm going to pull my hook to the side. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And this is just to define his foot a little bit more by having them angle out a little bit to the sides. I'm going to adjust his ears. And his nose. And I want to reach in here and grab the cap band from his bangs. And I should have adjusted this when I put them on the loom, when I attach them to the loom, but I want to pull his bangs to the front. So that's all I'm going to do. I'll just pull those a little bit to loosen them up. To adjust the teeth, it's a matter of reaching in and grabbing one white band from either side of those attachments and just pulling it forward. And then it's a matter of tweaking it and adjusting it until you can get them to look the way that you want them to. And all we have to do is hide our slip knot band, and I'm just going to reach inside a couple of bands at the back of his head and pull this loop through just to secure it out of the way. And again, his teeth may require a little bit of finessing, but you get the general idea. And there you have it. This is Timmy Turner of Fairly Odd Parents, and I will also be doing a couple more of the Fairly Odd Parent characters as I've posted on my Pinterest page and in Facebook. So thank you so very much for watching. I appreciate your being here. Please leave your comments below and let me know what you think, or if there's any particular Fairly Odd Parent character you would like for me to do. I will leave a list below in the comments of all of the characters that I can do and have designed. So let me know what you think, and don't forget to like and subscribe. We're also going to continue with the Big Brother 16 cast members, as well as the Minecraft Stampy Cat, and I've got lots more in store coming up, so stay tuned, and thank you so much for watching. See you next time.